Hello.
Hang on. There we go. Can you hear me?
In my hair. Hang on. A feather.
You'll have to excuse my post-training unwashed hair. I do apologise for that.
Not a problem. Let me just turn these bloody. I was running late. My internet is really playing up today.
Okay.
It's really windy where I am. Weirdly, we have fibre optic, but when it's windy, the internet is shit. So
there's always an excuse for shit internet, isn't there? There's always a reason. Oh, it's windy. Oh, it's something. There's never going to be great internet. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. But yeah,
it's nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Firstly, let me apologise for last time. I'm really sorry about last time. It was the day after I came back from Wales and I just completely forgot. So massive apology for that.
It's fine. Look, in the podcasting world, stuff like that is common. Trust me.
Okay.
You're not the first, you won't be the last, so it's all cool. It's recording already, but I'll sort of do a kind of like a start and an end, but hopefully we get a chat to a minute or two to chat at the end. I'd probably try and keep you about 45 minutes most, I would hope.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Cool. Welcome everybody, welcome. So today I'm recording another episode of The Real Sports Show, my new podcast. I'm really excited about this podcast and some of the guests that we're managing to get on. Today is no exception. We've got a phenomenal guest on and I'm really looking forward to just having an interesting laid back chat with this amazing lady. So today I'm really blessed to be joined with Helen Ward. Hello, Helen.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm really well. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. This is the new podcast series, a new podcast that I created all around sport. And I'm just really delighted that you agreed to come on. But rather than me introduce you to the audience, I love doing this. Guests are always coming. I like people to try and blow their own trumpet. So come on, can you blow your own trumpet? Who is Helen Ward?
I'm not sure if I'm any good at blowing my own trumpet, but I'll give it a go. Helen Ward is a footballer. I've played since I was about 9 or 10 years old. And yeah, it's very different from back then to how it is now in the world of women's football. But in my career so far, I've been lucky enough to play for the likes of Watford, Arsenal, Chelsea, Reading. I'm back at Watford again now. And also playing for the Welsh international team, where I've managed to rack up, I think, 94 caps.
Wow.
And I've scored a few goals as well. So yeah, it's good. And I've got 2 kids as well who keep me very busy. I'm just pleased they've gone back to school now because it gives me a little bit of peace and quiet in the afternoons.
Yeah, but anyone that's not, we recorded this in March, so it's been a week, March 2021, so anyone's listened to it outside of that time, this is the first week that the kids have gone back to school, so I know there's a lot of big sighs of relief in the world. Homeschooling. Thank God.
Definitely.
I take my hat off to you. How old are your kids?
Emily is 6 and Charlie's 3, so he's just started at the school nursery, just in the afternoons. But as I said, those afternoons, those 3 hours I get in the afternoon, they're like a godsend. So it's the first time in sort of 6.5 years that I've been child free on a regular basis. So I'm making the most of it, managing to get some training done on my own, which is nice. And yeah, just taking a bit of time for me, which is what we all need at times, I think.
Oh, look, I'm all about the self-care stuff. I know it's difficult when you've got kids. My kids are grown up, but I'm super passionate about that and about us finding time every day. I know it's not easy when you've got little kids. I used to get up really super early in order to carve out a bit of me time, but it is really challenging, I know. So yeah, I'll take my hat off to you. It is difficult. So this is really a relaxed conversation. It's really hard with podcasting because I know a lot of people get the same questions over and over again, and I'm always like, what can I ask that's outside the box? And one of the questions, I was challenged by Tom Bosworth, who's Olympic race walker, and he wanted to challenge me about my questions, and the question I gave to him, I'm going to give to you. See how you find this.
Okay.
If I could only ask you one question today, what would that question be? What would you like that question to be?
Oh wow. You've really thrown me. I have no idea.
Yeah, I did it to him as well. I was quite
Yeah,
chuffed.
I don't know, because I mean, like you said, I've been asked pretty similar questions, especially in the last 12 months because of what's going on and the pandemic, and you get a lot of questions around balancing time and, you know, with training with children, with lockdown, without lockdown, that kind of stuff. So I've sort of covered all of that. I don't know, maybe something around, there's nothing really I haven't been asked, to be honest, which is probably why I'm struggling to think, because if I haven't been asked it, I don't know that I need to be asked it.
Yeah, maybe. Is there one
maybe.
question that you like to be asked a lot? Is there a favourite question?
I quite like things sort of surrounding, you know, what is my passion to carry on playing football, you know, at 34 and with two children. Some people might think, you know, why are you still doing it? What drives you? So that stuff around that, because I find it, you know, when I listen to other people answering that sort of question, I always find it interesting, because people have so many different motivations to do what they're doing, whether it's in work, sport, anything else. So, you know, if I'm asked that, then hopefully I'd give an interesting answer. But yeah, anything goes. I'm not afraid to answer any questions, to be honest.
And I'm pretty laid back, like, because sometimes these conversations go off on a complete tangent, and
Yeah.
I like that. I'd rather it's a chat rather than like an interview. I never call
Yeah,
them
of course.
interviews. I always call them like conversations or chats, because I just think that's nicer. All right, let's do a bit more formal stuff then, because you've been playing since you were like 9 or 10, and how did you get into football then? Was it family? Was it, you know, you just picked up a ball and liked it? How did you get into it?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to grow up in a family, in an environment where sport was very much the norm. My dad, he grew up, he always played football, hockey, cricket, rugby, you name it. He was into all the sports, and, you know, even as he got a bit older, he still plays golf. When he can, obviously not right now, but he still plays golf. He played cricket while I was young. Was really young. My mum's the same. She plays netball. She still plays netball. She's just turned 67, and she's still, obviously, when things are allowed to get back, she'll be playing netball still. Hockey again. And my older brother, who he played football every weekend and for the school, and I was sort of going around following, you know, my parents and my brother to various different sporting events, and, you know, sort of kicking a ball around on the side or throwing a ball around, whatever it was. I was always around sport. And it just happens that football was the one that I sort of took to. I enjoyed it the most, whether it was watching my brother or playing with him in the garden. He normally made me go in goal, but that has not made me any sort of a goalkeeper, because I wouldn't stick me there now. But yeah, he probably toughened me up a bit, because he was quite a decent little player. And then yeah, it was him that he found some information out about our local team, which was Watford, and he said, why don't you go along? You know, you're quite a good player and you enjoy it, so why not go along? And that was it. I went along to my first session and just kicking a ball against the wall, because we used to train in this indoor sort of old barn type place with a wooden floor. Health and safety will probably go mad over it at the moment, in this day and age. There was always wet patches on the floor that were a bit slippery. The roof had leaked, but yeah, I was kicking a ball against the wall, and the coach came over and he said, look, we were going to sort of put you in the B team, but I can tell that you've kicked a ball before, so we'd like to see if, you know, you fancy coming up with the A team and playing with us at the weekend. And I think within a few days I'd made my debut, and I think I scored a hat-trick in my first under-10s game. So that kind of all snowballed from there, and I've never looked back. So it was it was just growing up around sport, and it was just the natural thing. It never seemed out of the ordinary for me as a girl to play sport, and in particular football.
Yeah, it's interesting. How was it back then? Because what we're talking, you're 34 now, so you're talking like 24 years ago. Like when I played football, like I'm 53, so
no way.
Yeah.
No, I'm not having that.
So when I played, it was like, well, you can imagine what it was like back then. I mean, I did athletics most of I was a good runner to county standard, and then I got into football and that, but it was I mean, we all bundled in a car, like 10 of us, to get to a match, and it was shambolic really when I think about it now and I look back at it. But actually, even 24 years ago in the women's game, it was still nothing like it is now. So what was it like then? Was it open? Because I've spoken to Jess Fishlock and a few other female footballers about it, what it was like for them back then. What was it like for you? Did you get kind of ridiculed for it? Or was it just openly accepted and cool crack?
Yeah, I was really lucky, actually. I think, I don't know whether it's because I had an older brother that sort of, I don't know, gave me a bit of clout in a way. Or just that I happened to be in a school with a really sort of open-minded environment. You know, the teacher who ran the boys football team, he was fantastic. And, you know, considering, like you're saying, this is 24 years ago, he had no problems putting me in the boys team if I was good enough. Me and my friend, we used to play in the boys team, and you know, and the same, the boys had no problem with it. They, you know, even now I get messages on Facebook from some of my friends who I haven't seen since I was 10 or 11 years old. And they're like, oh, I remember a goal you scored. It's so amazing to see you still playing. And, you know, and that's how it was. But they were my friends and they had no problem with the fact that a girl was on their team. So I'm really fortunate because I know it's not the same for everyone, and not everybody had that sort of luxury of just being able to get on with it and play. In terms of, you know, club football and stuff, we again, I was fortunate to be part of a really successful team. We used to win the league, the cup, all the tournaments. We used to be really, really good, and you know, the sort of team that everybody wanted to beat. So again, I was lucky in that sense. But also, to me, it was just football. There was no sort of progression. It was just, I'm here in the moment and I'm playing and I love it, and that was it. There was no senior footballers that I looked up to because I didn't know of anyone at that point. I didn't even know Watford had a senior team because it was so separate. You didn't train or see them at the same places and stuff. So it kind of just happened that I kind of grew up as women's football grew, and it, you know, it's quite mad. People say, oh, do you regret that you're sort of coming to the end of your career when football's really taking off and it's a professional sport? And I kind of think, do you know what? I honestly have no regrets, and I'm not disappointed that I'm not growing up and coming into it now, because who knows, I might not have had anywhere near the career that I've had if I was a 16 or 17-year-old now coming into the sport, because there's so many different pressures and different expectations, whereas I could just play and enjoy it and love it. And I think that's what made me want to carry on for as long as I have, because it has just been purely about the enjoyment and the love of football. I just, you know, I'm fortunate that I was quite good, and I've been able to sort of make half a career from it. So I think, you know, I wouldn't change a thing about how I've come up through football, you know, and as I said, seeing it grow as I've grown up as a person as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, like when I think about that and that, I think, oh, I wish I was playing football now. I wish I was 16 now. So I'm the opposite. I mean, I could run fast. That was probably my best. I was good on the wing because I could run really quick. Didn't have a lot of technical ability, to be honest, but I love playing. But I would have loved to have been, I would have loved to have been playing now. I just think now how.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the thought of being able to train and play every day at that age of 16 to 20 odd, whatever, it would have been fantastic, and I'm sure I would have loved it. But I don't like to look back and wish for something different. You know, I'm so happy with how my career's gone and where it is now. But you know, that's not to say I don't think it's amazing what's happening, and it is fantastic. These girls have got such amazing opportunities, you know, not just within the playing side of the game, but the things that they can then get from it afterwards. I think it's just fantastic. And it's one of those, I appreciate what I've got, but I also appreciate what is going on now, and you know, hopefully I can still remain a part of football even if I'm not playing. Then hopefully I can still benefit from where it is and where it's going.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about your career then, from sort of the last 24 years. Was there a point that you yourself thought, yeah, I'm pretty good at this, or was it? Did you not have like that penny drop moment, that light bulb moment? You thought, oh yeah, I can be really something in this game, or was it? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever had that moment. I still wouldn't, you know, if I compare myself to other players, I probably think, oh, I don't know how I've ended up where I am, because you know, I've played with some of the best players in the world, you know, some of the best players in Europe, and I think, how have I managed to be on the same team as them? Because technically I'm probably nowhere near them. but I've got a good work rate and I'm passionate, and that's taken me quite a long way.
I think it can take you a long way in anything. I always say you can have all the skill in the world, but if you've got no will, then it's useless.
Exactly. And it's doing those extra bits that nobody's watching, and making sure you're at every session. Just something as simple as turning up every session, which it's not easy because there's so many distractions and excuses you can pull out. But even now, when I know I could easily get away with missing a training session or not going out to do an extra run, in my mind I can't do it, and I can't let myself. And I think that's kind of how I've done okay. But I think probably the moment where I thought this is becoming a little bit more serious was when I was at Watford. I was 21 or 22, and Arsenal put in sort of an inquiry as to whether I'd want to go over and join them. And I was like, whoa, this is a bit much, because this is Arsenal. They won the Champions League a couple of years before, or the UEFA Cup as it was called. They won the league every year. They were always in the FA Cup final. And I'm thinking, my God, they want me. Like, what's going on? And that was kind of the moment where I thought, right, this is a little bit more serious now. And I've turned up to my first training session with them, and you've got the likes of Faye White, Rachel Yankee, Jane Ludlow, Kelly Smith, all these amazing names that you just think, what? And again, it was one of those moments, that sort of inferiority complex and
comparisonizers.
And you kind of think, what's happened here? Have they made a mistake? But I had been doing really well for Watford in the same division. I'd scored a couple of goals against Arsenal, which maybe alerted them to me and what I was about. So that was probably the moment where I thought, okay, this is happening now. I'd made my debut for Wales, I think, about 3 or 4 months earlier than that. So everything had started to come together around 2008, 2009, where suddenly it wasn't just playing with your mates at the weekend, it was internationals, it was playing with other internationals and everything that comes with that. So that was, I'd say that was probably it, sort of early 20s, where it all became a bit more serious, and I had to take myself more seriously as well as the game.
Yeah, sure. What was that like, getting your first cap for Wales? Because obviously, like you said, you've now got 94 of the buggers. What was it like getting the first one? I'm assuming that was probably the most special one out of all 94. I don't know.
Yeah, it was, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. It's no secret that I played for England under 23s when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. I didn't enjoy myself on the few times I was away with them, and that's nothing to, that's not me having a go at anyone. I just didn't really fit for whatever reason, whether it was on the pitch or off the pitch. It didn't work. And I ended up feeling anxious about going. And I thought, this isn't right. I shouldn't not want to go away to play football. And then the coach at Watford at the time, he was also the assistant manager for Wales. And he kind of made a passing comment about having grandparents from Wales. And I said, well, actually, my mum's parents were both Welsh, and they actually both represented Wales in sport. So, why are you asking, kind of thing? And he said, well, do you fancy it? Do you fancy coming along?
Yeah.
And I had a teammate at Watford, Sally Wade, and she'd already played for Wales. And she said, honestly, it's the best thing you'll ever do. Like, come along, give it a go. I just know that you'll love it. So I went along, and from the minute I stepped in the room, it was just for a sort of, I think it was a fitness testing training session, actually. And I went along, and I did all right in the fitness testing. But the thing that made it was the girls there. I didn't know any of them, but they knew of me, and they said, you've got to come, like, we need a goal scorer, we know how good you are. And they just made me feel welcome, and everybody loves that. You can deny it all you want, but everybody loves being told that they're good. And that was it. They made me feel so welcome. And then I went along to, I think the next game was maybe a month or two later, and it was Luxembourg away. We stayed in this tiny little hotel. The room was, 2 really skinny single beds for me and Sally, my roommate, a little tiny TV on the wall that didn't show anything in English, chucking down with rain. Everything but I remember it. And we got to the ground, and it was a new kit had just come out, and the girls were like, oh, it's the first time we've had women's fit kit. I think it was made by Champion.
So what,
and it was just like
2000
that was 2008 September.
The first time we had proper female kit.
Yeah, and I think after we went then to Umbro, it went back to the men's fit kit. So it's been to and fro, but I just remember, like, the girls were excited that we'd had this new kit and stuff. And yeah, I was named in the team, and just standing there for the first time, you know, alongside the likes of Jane Ludlow, who I didn't know it, but I was about to join her team, you know, a few months later and play for Arsenal with her. And yeah, it was just fantastic. In the warm up, I was on her team in the little small sided, and I just kept thinking, don't give it away, because I knew she'd give you a rocket. But yeah, we even went 1-0 down, which we weren't supposed to do against Luxembourg. But I managed to score the equaliser within, I think, about 10 or 15 minutes of kickoff. And Jane came up to me and she sort of grabbed my head and said, I love you, we've got a goal scorer. And that was it. I thought, okay, I'm all right now. She's happy with me. She likes me. We're good to go. And yeah, that was the start of it. But that cap and that sort of first camp of being with Wales means everything. And you know, if I had to stop there and then, I'd have been happy that I'd have made my debut. But yeah, luckily for me, it just sort of went from strength to strength from then.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do like, you know, the podcast is, you know, I want it to be about the, you know, behind the glory, as it were, behind, you know, what it takes. And what goes on, and you know, because you can tend to think, well, we all see the highlights, right? You know, us general public, you know, like, I think it's all glamorous and what have you, but actually, you know, it isn't, and it takes a lot of determination. And I think that's what I want to get to with these episodes in this podcast. So I really appreciate you, you know, sharing that experience. It doesn't sound that glamorous, but it's memorable. So
yeah, definitely.
That's good. So obviously, not long after that, you went on to go to Arsenal, which is my team, by the way. I just want to drop that in. What was that like? You know, I mean, you seem pretty level-headed. I can imagine some people it might be like, "Well, yeah, you know, Arsenal will come knocking on the door." But what was the experience of transitioning?
It was crazy. It was really crazy, actually, because it was our second season at Watford in the National League. We'd never been in their top league, which is the equivalent of the WSL now, if you like.
Yeah.
So we played a season. We were sort of almost halfway through that second season, and I'd done okay up to that point. I'd scored quite a few goals, and you know, my name had been talked about a little bit. And just before Christmas, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Leeds, weirdly, had all sort of been in touch with the club, and Leeds were the first team, I think, and they were doing really well. They had a great side back then, the likes of Ellen White, Steph Horton. They were all playing for Leeds at that time as youngsters. But obviously at that point it was nowhere near professional, and so for me to say, yeah, okay, I'll come and live up in Leeds, it just wasn't going to work. You know, for a couple of training sessions a week, there was no way that was going to work, although I was very flattered. So I kind of knocked that one on the head straight away. Then the next thing I know, Chelsea have come in for you. And then it's the same thing. Chelsea, they were nowhere near where they are now. They were very much a sort of a team in transition, sort of mid-table kind of team. They weren't the powerhouse that Emma Hayes has created in the last few years. But again, I was just not ready to leave Watford, or I thought I wasn't, or at least not to go to a club that, in my eyes, wasn't a massive step up. It wasn't sort of like, oh, you have to take this, you never know, you might not get the chance again. So again, I sort of turned that down, and I was more than happy to stay at Watford. It was my club, my friends were there, I was a captain at the time, and everything was just fine. You know, I was doing all right. And then Arsenal came in, and I was like, whoa, this is a bit different. This is one of those moments where you have to have a think about this, because they are the top team. They've got the best players in the country. They've got some of the best players in the world. You turn this down, you could regret that for the rest of your life. So as much as I really didn't want to leave Watford, I knew I had to take the gamble almost of going over to Arsenal. Luckily, it's local. Obviously, Watford and Arsenal's training grounds are next door. So I knew it wasn't going to be too much in terms of traveling and that kind of thing, and I just thought, it's now or never. You have to give it a go. And yeah, so I think I actually signed for them on New Year's Day in 2009. I don't think Vic Akers knows this, but I was really hungover when I went to sign the contract, which is terrible.
Well, it was New Year's Day.
This is the old days where you could go out on New Year's Eve and it was okay. You know, if you're inviting a 21-year-old over to sign a contract on New Year's Day, you got to expect that they might have been out the night before. But yeah, so that was how it started. And yeah, it was a strange time in my career, because I was at the best club in the country, but I never felt like I did myself justice while I was there.
Right.
I don't know if I played within myself a little bit, just because of the players around me. You know, I've already said it a couple of times. It's that kind of feeling of I shouldn't really be here.
Right.
And I don't know if that maybe held me back a little bit, that I never felt really like I deserved to be there, which is a shame, because now, you know, I realise that I should never have thought like that, because they came for me, they wanted to sign me. But again, I'd never change my decision of going there. I think it taught me a lot about myself, and I did okay. You know, I wasn't, you know, one of those signings where you think, oh, that was a terrible mistake, or at least I hope I wasn't. But yeah, it was. I just think I probably could have done myself a little bit more justice, but that's me being my harshest critic.
Yeah, when we do compare ourselves, you know, I've been in situations, you know, for work actually, and I speak a lot, and I go in places and have to speak amongst other coaches, and you know, and sometimes I'm a bit like, yeah, I'm a bit intimidated here, and you do.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing, isn't it, that you do hold
Yeah.
yourself back. So
It's that imposter syndrome. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. And
it's a bastard, that one.
you know, and I do, and I look back and I think, actually, no, yeah, I remember that game. I did quite well then. And there are moments where I think, yeah, you did actually do okay. But I just think in myself, I think it could have been that little bit more that could have made all the difference. But as I said, I don't have any regrets, and it did teach me a lot about myself, and probably I learned a lot more than I realised at the time, just by being around the likes of Kim Little and all those players I mentioned before, just the way the standards they hold themselves to. And I think that's probably stood me in really good stead throughout my career. You know, I always had that in me beforehand, but the levels of fitness were that much higher, and the demands that you know, the expectations that you look after yourself on and off the pitch. You know, there's probably no more New Year's Eve drink ups, turning up with a hangover after that point. And that's kind of the stuff that maybe I didn't realise I was learning at the time, but looking back, you think, actually, yeah, that is definitely where I picked it up from, or I learned this from this person, and you kind of, it builds you
now, really, probably, you know.
Yeah,
you've got
exactly.
the motivation and the desire, but you've looked after yourself to a different level.
Yeah, and I think I'd give Arsenal a lot of credit for that, because they were professional before anyone else was professional. You know, even if it wasn't in terms of training every day, the standards they held themselves to, the bus they went to onto games, the fact that we were at the training ground. What is this, like 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah,
they've been there all that time, whereas clubs are now only saying, yeah, we've got the women's team at the training ground, good, well done, clap us. But actually Arsenal have been doing that for so much longer. And they are really the club that made women's football, and Vic Akers has got a lot, you know, he's got to take a lot of credit for that. So yeah, I think I've got a lot, although as I said, I don't think I did myself massive justice on the pitch. I do know that they still shaped my career in a really positive way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I always remember Arsenal being the standout. You know, they would just always stand out in the women's game, and still now we don't have, you know, all the clubs supporting the women's game and letting them training on the same pitches and stuff like that. You know, we've still got a ways to go. It's definitely better than it was, but it's still a long way to go.
It was all the little details. Like I turned up and he said, right, what size are you? And I was like, what do you mean? What size feet are you? And he gave me a pair of boots. And I was like, what? I've never had a free pair of boots before. Nike boots. Like, it was little things like that the players now probably take for granted a little bit. Well, not all players, obviously, but the ones in the top teams.
Yeah, I'm sure they're coming through now. Like, they're never going to know any different, right? You know, if
exactly, yeah. And so I think, again, that going back to my point earlier about not regretting anything, I think I've learned to appreciate everything I've got. And yeah, okay, some people say, well, you shouldn't have to appreciate it, but you do, because if you don't appreciate it, then it's not worth doing, if that makes sense. Like, I appreciate where I was or where football was and where it is now. And I think that makes me want to carry on for longer, because I do appreciate where it's all come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, names on kit, having women's fit, that was Arsenal did that. They've been doing that for decades, and you know, you have to take your hat off to them.
No.
As much as I'm not an Arsenal fan.
Well, I have to drop it in. So, I mean, what was that experience? Obviously, you've said a bit about what that experience was like, but I guess out of that team, because it was some pretty amazing players at that time in that team, and I really remember it really well. Who would you say the best player was that you played against, or with and against? I guess the question is.
Kim Little stands out massively. Kelly Smith, she's the best player I've played against, probably, in terms of out and out natural talent and ability, technique, everything. You know, she was unbelievable. And funnily enough, I played against her in a charity game about 3 years ago, and she'd been retired and had a baby, and she came and played against a team of us who were all still playing, and you just thought she could still play for Arsenal and probably England now. Like, she's just, the vision and the reading of the game, she just made it look so easy. And when a player does that, you know they're special. So she's always going to be someone that I didn't get to play with her for long, because the time I signed was when her, Kaz Carney and Alex Scott were going off to America. So that's why they were bringing in a couple of players. I mean, I'm not going to say I was there to replace Kelly Smith, because that would be ridiculous, but that's kind of the timing. So she was only there for maybe a month or so after I signed, before she went off to America. But even in that time, she'd sort of wander around training, and you're like, okay, are you going to do anything? And then suddenly she'd pluck the ball out of the air and bend it in with the outside of her foot, and you're like, okay, now I see it, I get it. And just like moments like that, you just couldn't help but sort of stand there in awe and think, wow, she's unbelievable. Kim Little, she must have only been 18 or 19 at the time, but she was already running the show. And my kind of job as a number 9 with her as a 10 was to make runs, to make space for her, basically. So I'm going to take a lot of credit for where she is now, because I allowed her to get on the ball so much.
I take it as well.
I mean, no, obviously, no, she was fantastic. And just, again, that low centre of gravity, the ability to go past players like they're not there, and her finishing was world class as well. And she's obviously gone on to achieve amazing things with both Arsenal and Seattle. When she went over to America, she was seen by all the Americans as one of the best players in the league. And I think, you know, when you go to a league like that and you dominate it, that says a lot about you as a player. So those two probably stand out, you know, both, you know, playing with and against. But yeah, I could name so many of them. You'd be here all day.
Yeah, I could talk sport all day. So if it wasn't for the restrictions on podcasting and keeping people's attention, really annoying. I could talk all day, and I get guests like you on, and I do want to talk all day, but sadly I can't. I want to switch back to the international stuff then, because obviously you talk about goal scoring and stuff with Kim, etc., Arsenal, but you know, you've scored a few goals for your country, so I think you are their top goal scorer. I mean, I know I'm right, but but you are, right? So you've done all right internationally.
Yeah, I have, and it's a bit irritating, because for so long I had a better than 1 in 2 record. You know, I had more than 1 in 2, but over the last probably 4 to 6 years, I've sort of added the caps, but haven't added as many goals. So my ratio is not quite as good as 1 in 2 at the moment. It's not a million miles away, but it's not quite there. Yeah, it is, and it is something that I brush off a little bit at the moment. But I think when I finish playing and I look back and think, actually, do you know what? To score 40 plus goals internationally, especially as you think a lot of them came when we were a team who were kind of there to make up the numbers. You know, we weren't amazing. We weren't competing in the way that we are, or we have done in the last few years. So to be able to score that many goals in a team that wasn't particularly brilliant, and I don't think any of my teammates will mind me saying that. You know, we've grown massively as a nation and a group of players in the time that since I made my debut. So I know that, you know, when I'm a little old lady sitting down looking back at my life and my career, I'll probably think, yeah, actually, do you know what, you did well, and your record is something to be very proud of. So yeah, it is. I get, it's one of those again that I get asked about quite a lot, but I kind of tend to brush it off a little bit. I don't know if it's embarrassment or I'm not sure what it is.
It's hard, isn't it, sometimes for, it's like, well, I don't know if it's embarrassment. I don't know what it is. It's just like sometimes we just struggle, don't we, to take the accolades. And
yeah,
if you're American,
definitely.
you probably have no problem with it. Americans like brash, are a bit more like
probably have a t-shirt on or something with the number on or something.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I wish we were more like it, but I think
totally.
We're not great at bigging ourselves up and blowing our own trumpets, really. And
no,
42 goals, is incredible. It really, really is. I think it's
43.
Oh, sorry, 43. Missed one of Wikipedia.
Yeah, you can't trust Wikipedia. I'm surprised it's on 42. Actually, I thought it had been updated.
42. I got
longer
written down.
But...
What?
Okay.
So you're on 94. Do you hope to get to 100? Do you see that there's?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, when I look and I think, right, you've got to 94 and you've had 2 children, which has obviously taken a period of time out of playing, and you think that's not too bad. You've done well. Even if I didn't step on the pitch again for Wales, then I'm still very proud to have reached that number of caps. But obviously, the closer you get, the more you start thinking, well, it would be really nice to get there. I've been fortunate enough to see Jess Fishlock, Lauren Dykes and Sophie Ingle get there. Yeah. And amazingly so, especially look at Sophie Ingle. She's done it before she's 30. And that's, for me, is unbelievable. She's also, those 3 I've mentioned are also up there with some of the best I've played with, by the way. But yeah, to potentially be in their company, I'm sort of the next on the list that's closest to 100. That's not to say I'm going to get there next, but at the moment I'm closest to 100. So I'd love to get there. I don't want it to be sort of a token where you get 5 minutes at the end of the next 6 games. I'd like to earn those 6 caps, sorry. But obviously there's a bit of transition at the moment with Wales, and at the time of this podcast we haven't got a manager that's been named yet. I think that's in the process at the moment. So whoever comes in, they might decide to go in a different direction, and that's obviously their choice. But obviously I'd love to be available, and I'd love to play in as many more games as I can, and that's very much my focus, is to still be in contention for the Wales team. And I'll put myself in the best place to do that, and hopefully, as I said, hopefully the new manager comes in and they want me to be involved. So yeah, I'd love to get there, and it'll be a nice way to sort of round off, to say that you've made 100, or hopefully more. But yeah, the closer you get, the more you kind of start thinking, right, if I play in this game, if I play in that game, I could get there by then. But then you get kind of like a bit, and you get kind of a bit distracted by why you're playing the games and the importance of them as games themselves. So I sort of have to stop myself doing that, and just, it's so cliche, but take each one as it comes. And if I get there, I get there. And hopefully, I'd have earned those caps, however many I do get.
Yeah, well, I hope you get there. I mean, just sort of following on, I guess, from that is, you touched on about the future, and, you're 34 years old. You keep yourself amazingly fit and well. And the question we had at the very beginning is, about what motivates you to keep going, and what are your future aspirations at this point in time?
Yeah, so I think... I do my best to try and keep myself fit. It's been difficult, but from sort of December through to February, while I wasn't able to play or train. And then I sort of made a loan move, if you like, to London Bees in the period until Watford can get back training. And that's been massive for me. So I'm very grateful to them for taking me on board. And that's allowed me to sort of get myself back into a position where I'm, ready to play games and train properly. But my motivation is just to try and play for as long as I can. Everyone says, I've had so many times, particularly over the last 12 months, where I've thought, maybe this is a sign that you've had enough, you're done, you've had a good career, maybe it's time to move on and start thinking of other things. And as soon as I start thinking that, I think, I know I'll miss it. I'm not ready to step out of that changing room and that environment. It's not even necessarily the actual games. Of course, I love playing and training, but it's just being with a teammate and having a purpose to my training. You know, there's one thing running on a treadmill when you've got football to think of, but I can't imagine having to do it when there's no purpose to it. There's no sort of end goal. And although football's not an end goal, it's something that keeps me going, and it gives me a reason to get up and do the training and go out and, you know, train in the rain and the wind and whatever else. And I think it's just knowing that the motivation is, I don't know how to word this, is so that I end my career with no regrets and no sort of wishes that I had carried on. My family, my husband, my parents, his parents, they all say to me, don't give it up. You're not ready. Like, we know you're not ready because we can see how much it still means to you. The fact you do turn up to every training session, the fact you do keep going out on your own means something to you. Yeah. And that it's true. I wouldn't do it if I didn't care. And it's that point where I don't care, or I start making excuses where I think, do you know what? I have had enough. I'm finding things to do that aren't football related. And that's when I'll know. And of course, with my two children as well, I want to be a good role model for them. I want to be a positive role model, and for them to see me going out and playing football. And, you know, my little boy today, he was joining in with a little sort of power session that I was doing in the house. And, you know, he was doing his own version of some squat jumps and stuff like that. And it's that kind of thing that keeps me going, because I want him and Emily to grow up knowing that sport is good for you. It's, you know, exercise and things like that. I don't want to tell them they have to do it, but if they see me doing it, it's normal to them, and it's something that hopefully that they'll just naturally sort of grow into. So there's lots of different reasons. And of course, winning things on the pitch, I'm still massively motivated. I'd love to get Wales to a World Cup. I'd love to get Watford up to the Championship or possibly higher. So there's all those sorts of things as well that are a massive motivation for me. Yeah,
well, you know, if you're getting yourself out there in the wind and the rain, then that's definitely motivation, right? So
exactly.
What do you hope to do, I guess, you know, because you talked about staying in the game and loving being around the game. Do you hope to sort of get involved in coaching and stuff like that once that sort of time comes? Is that sort of something you fancy?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like the idea of coaching. I did a bit of it when I was younger, but that was more the kind of kids club babysitting kind of coaching, where there wasn't so much structure. The kids were kind of there because their parents told them to be. But I would have an interest in coaching the sort of more development or elite level, particularly girls, because I'm passionate about getting girls into football and stuff like that. So something around that possibly, but I think I've said it before to other people that I think when I stop playing, I want to be away from the pitch for maybe 6-12 months, just to not be in that environment, because I think I'd find it difficult, particularly if I'm in and around, say, Watford, and I'm then coaching players that I've been playing with. I think I'd find that quite difficult, and I would be jealous almost of them still playing. So I think I might need a bit of time sort of away from the training pitch. I'm really interested in the media side of stuff. I've got a degree in sports writing and broadcasting.
Oh, cool.
So that kind of side of it, I've done a few bits for various different media outlets, BBC Wales, Sky Sports, and that kind of stuff. So I'm interested in that side of the game as well, and as well as the sort of digital content, that kind of stuff, the more modern media, if you like, social media stuff. Almost the behind the scenes, because I know how interesting I find it when clubs or athletes or anyone, to be honest, goes sort of behind, like you said, you go behind the scenes and see the ins and outs and the day-to-day stuff that you don't usually get to see. I find that really interesting. So if I could sort of be on the other side of it and help sort of give that insight, I'd love to stay at Watford in some capacity. It's my club, it's my home, you know, and I know that I'd feel really passionate about getting them out there and doing stuff for them. So I've got, you know, a few different sort of things that I could potentially go into. It's just a case of nailing down one that really suits me, and, you know, that hopefully I'd be quite good at.
I just want to pick up on a couple of things that you said there, obviously, about women in sport. I'm really, one of my passions is getting the visibility of women's sport up in general, because it's shocking how much we're in the media and on the TV. It's you know, I think globally, it's only 4% of women's sport is on the TV. So that's pretty shocking. And
Yes.
yeah, kind of getting the message out there that, because obviously a lot of young girls drop out at sort of 14, 15, 16 age, when maybe get interested in boys and how they look, and not wanting to get hot and bothered and sweaty and get muscles and all of that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try and change the message on that and make sport, women's sport, more visible. That's like one of my passions. And you touched on sort of getting young girls involved in football. So does Emily play?
She doesn't. She comes to my games and she'll kick a ball around. I mean, I hate to say it, but her coordination isn't necessarily the best. She's got very long legs.
How disappointing is that?
Very long limbs, and just, I don't know, there's something between the brain and the limbs that's not quite connected. But she's sort of interested, and she likes sort of gymnastics and that kind of thing. I'm not desperate for her to play football at all. I don't want any girl to play that isn't interested in it. And the same with Charlie. He's got more of an inkling to pick up a ball or kick a ball. It's more, it seems to come a bit more naturally to him. But yeah, if Emily came to me and said, I don't want to ever see a football again, then that's fine. But I'd love them both to be into some sort of sport or exercise. She, as I said, she loves gymnastics, and I'd like to get her into a gymnastics club or something similar. As much for the social side of it as the physical side of it. But going back to what you said about girls dropping out at that age, where their bodies are starting to change. It'd be nice to come up with something where girls realise how good it makes you feel when you're doing it, or once you're done. And I'm the same as you. I'd snap someone's hands off to be involved in anything that was going to help sort of portray that message, whether it is more visibility on the TV, or the media coverage, or whether it's some sort of campaign that shows how great it is. But yeah, I'd love to be involved in setting up a proper pathway for the youngsters at Watford as well, because there's not one that's brilliant that's in place at the moment. So again, that's another sort of angle I could go down, that's not necessarily coaching, but maybe, I don't want to say a director, but that kind of, someone that's organised and oversees a program for younger girls or something like that. So yeah, I think sport is just it can be such a massive tool to physical, mental, social health. I think it's played such a massive role in my life. As I said, I've grown up around it forever, and I'm really fortunate that it was so natural to me. I just think that, whether it's in schools or outside of schools, there should be so much more done to encourage kids to be more active. Totally, because it just does amazing things for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a massive advocate for everyone moving their body every day. Doesn't really matter in what way. With bodies are designed to move, and it's just so good for us mentally. I always say to clients that aren't, I deal with some athletes and other corporate clients and stuff like that, but I say moving your body is not about how you look physically, it's how you feel mentally, and it will have an impact on you mentally way sooner than it will show up physically. Sadly, we live in a world where most people only do it because they want to have a six-pack or look a certain way, instead of
want to stick it on Instagram.
Instead of protecting their peace of mind and their mindset, which is what it will do most for, especially in early doors. You never regret a workout. So I'm a massive believer in all of that, and certainly anyone that works with me. Obviously, the sports clients is okay, but the non-sports clients is like, no, you have to move your body. It's part of working with me. You've got
even if it's just a half an hour walk. Taking the dog for a walk, anything, the fresh air, the movement, everything. It refreshes you, and it puts your mind in a better place. Like you said, I've never come out of a workout and thought, wow, I feel rubbish. You don't. Even if you haven't hit the goals that you necessarily wanted to hit, you still physically, your adrenaline, your endorphins, you feel better.
That gets released. I got a new client a couple of weeks ago, and they were in a really bad, it wasn't a sports client, it was a corporate client, and really, really bad place. And I said, right, first thing you need to do is just walk every day for 45 minutes, because they weren't getting away from behind their desk. And I was like, that's the end of the coaching session. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And off they went and did that for a week. They came back and they were like a different person. You know, it's like
honestly,
it's,
yeah.
you know, it's so sometimes we think it's complicated. It's not complicated. Anyway, I'm very
and I
conscious
think
of time.
now this time of year is the best time to get people started on that sort of journey as well, where the lighter evenings, I mean, not today, it's really windy and horrible, but you know, you're getting a bit more sunshine. And I think, you know, lockdown one, if nothing else, it got people out and it got people enjoying moving and being out in the nice weather. So, you know, I think, amazing what you're doing and trying to get people moving. I think it's fantastic. So
I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, I want to kind of not hold you up too much longer. Quick question, a couple of quick questions to finish. Your greatest sporting achievement?
Or it's a strange one because it's not necessarily a tangible achievement, but coming back to playing international football after having children, doing it twice, for me personally is something I never thought I'd be able to do. So I think that's got to be up there, as well as the obvious, you know, international cap, first international cap and first FA Cup medal, that kind of stuff. But yeah, the coming back after kids is a big one for me because, as I said, didn't think it was possible.
No, it's incredible. I tip my hat to. There's obviously a few ladies across the board in sport that have had children and come back and play at a really high level of any sport, and it's incredible, absolutely incredible. So yeah, definitely tip my hat to you on that one.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions then, just to get to know who you are a little bit more. I guess, what's your 4 favourite foods?
Oh, right. Okay, no judgment here. We're going from a person, not an athlete. Chocolate, number 1.
Of course.
Over everything. Top 4. I mean, I can't really look beyond chocolate. It's so hard.
Oh dear.
A go-to thing for me, I like a homemade curry.
Yeah.
So one that's got less rubbish in it than one you buy from a shop.
Yeah.
But still very nice. Roast beef, like cooked roast beef, roasted down.
Yeah.
And then probably something like a cheesecake with cookie dough ice cream. I mean, that's really specific, I understand, but yeah, I mean, you've put me on the spot there, so I'm probably going to go away and think, oh no, I should have said this. But those 4, if I could only eat those 4 things for the rest of my life, I mean, I wouldn't be very healthy, but I'd enjoy them.
You'd have a good time eating them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. 4 favourite movies?
Classic Shawshank Redemption's up there. The Greatest Showman.
Oh, great film.
It's a great film and my kids love it, and we've had so many times where we've sat and watched it as a family, and that's been amazing, and they get up and dance and sing along, so that's got to be one. I don't know if anyone would know of this one. You might, I'm not sure. When Saturday Comes.
I've heard of it.
Sean Bean was in it, and he was a footballer, like a Sunday league, and he got an opportunity to play for Sheffield United.
I feel like I know it.
Yeah, it's really, I love that. I used to watch it all the time. Yeah. And then a real throwback to when I was tiny, the original Annie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Again, no judgment, but
trust me, no judgment with these.
I used to watch Annie and Oliver, the original ones, all the time when I was a kid. So there's a bit of a musical theme there with the Greatest Showman, and
there is actually.
Obviously, you could put Harry Potter in there as well, but I'll go with those 4.
Don't need to put that in there.
No, too many of them.
Yeah. Last question then. 4 words to describe yourself.
Determined, passionate, honest. I don't know. Happy.
That's not a bad thing. Right? Feel good.
Mostly. My husband will probably disagree with that one. But yeah, most of the time I'm happy. We'll go with that.
Awesome. Well, Helen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time out, and I probably could talk for another hour because I'd really like to delve into a little bit more of the football and stuff. But, like I say, I have to keep it limited. But no, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been really good to talk to you.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And if you run out of guests and you're desperate and you ever want to chat again, I'll be more than happy to. But no, it's been really good. So thank you very much.
When you go into that coaching role, which I think you probably will, I'll have you back on.
Okay, I'll keep you posted.
Thanks, Helen.